Hello and welcome to Fundamentals Part 3. So this one you can see is called Where is Your Mind? Well, what does that mean? Okay, well, in the last couple of videos, we looked at how the stress response works, how our mind affects the neurochemicals that we produce, how those neurochemicals then fill up our stress bucket, which then cause our sleep to go out of whack. And that's, what's then at the root of us not being able to cope very well. So in this one, we're going to look at how we fill the stress bucket up in the first place. And that's why I say, well, where is your mind? Now, we all have different levels of awareness about the way that we think. Now, I want you to start becoming aware of where your mind is. Okay. Now, with most people, you will recognize that pretty much all day long, your mind is worrying about something. You might be thinking about something that happened 2 seconds ago. So you're then in the past, aren't you? You might be thinking about something that's going to happen in 2 seconds' time. So you're thinking about the future. You might be thinking about 2 years or 20 years in the past. You might be thinking about 2 years or 20 years in the future. Yes? So recognize that with most people, most of the time, now, some of you will be more aware of this than others. Some of you may not really be aware of what you're thinking is going on, and others, will be more aware. Now, that's fine. But what we're going to learn in this, what we need to practice, is practicing becoming aware of what our mind is doing, where our mind is. So start to notice that, yes, I'm thinking about the past. Why did this happen? He shouldn't have said that and she shouldn't have done the other. Or what's going to happen about the future? And what if this doesn't happen? And what if they don't like me? Or what if this goes wrong? So we're bouncing between past and future. Now, most of us don't really recognize it as that because it's just what happens. It's just the brain whirring. But start to kind of sit back and notice, oh yeah, I'm thinking about the past. I'm thinking about the future. Now, notice the style of thinking, because we learned in the previous videos, the default setting of the brain is to look at the worst case scenario. Yes? So when you think about something that happened in the past, most of the time, do you tend to be thinking about stuff that you would categorize as good or bad? Probably bad. You tend to think negatively about things because, again, without you realizing it, that's the default setting of the brain. When you think about the future, do you tend to think, yes, this is going to be brilliant. I'm going to have a wonderful day. This is going to be fabulous. Or do you tend to think, oh, they probably won't like me. This might go wrong. Yes? So we're thinking negatively. Now, again, this is the limbic system in action. And remember, it's not because it's your enemy. It's doing things from its perspective to try and keep you safe by looking at the worst case scenario. But when this computer program is effectively running you without you being aware that it's running you, that's how we just drift into being negative. So we've got to really start to be aware of where your mind is, because when your mind is wandering to the past, where you're going into memory, which isn't real, by the way, because it's something you're remembering. It's not happening now, is it? You're remembering something, but then you can still get really triggered and angry about what you're remembering, can't you? I'm really angry with her or him for this, that, or the other. Or you're thinking about the future. I bet they're going to do this or that. And we can really wind ourselves up by thinking about stuff that isn't even happening now. Does that make sense? So start to notice this. Start to notice it now as I'm talking. And I want you to start noticing this over the coming hours, days, and weeks to start becoming aware of where your mind is. Because every time that your mind wanders into the past, into memory, or into future, into imagination, and you allow it to think negatively about some situation, person, event, or your life in general, or negatively about yourself, then you are in some way, to some degree, triggering the monkey mind. You're triggering the stress response, which means you're releasing what? Neurotransmitters into your system, and they're going to be basically stress-based neurotransmitters. So you're going to be starting to feel anxiety, anger, fear, depression. All of these things are, they're not beamed in by aliens. The way that we feel, we think it's to do with our outside world. She made me angry. He made me upset. but it isn't. It's the way that you're choosing to think about those situations, those people, or yourself, or your life, the way that you think about the past, the way that you think about the future. It's the way that you're thinking about it that determines what neurochemicals are released into your system, and it's those neurochemicals, those neurotransmitters, that then determine how you feel. Because just really make that connection. This is the mind-body connection. When you say you feel angry, you feel anxious, well, what's the feeling? Where's it coming from? Well, I just feel it. But you've never thought, well, hang on, how does this feeling arrive in my body? It's basically your system getting your attention, saying, hey, look, there's a potential polar bear here, and I'm going to release some neurochemicals that make you feel jittery so that you get away from that potentially life-threatening situation. Does that make sense? But the key thing to remember is that your sensible human mind knows the difference between a polar bear attack and an argument with somebody, or an exam, or an interview coming up. It knows the difference. Your human mind knows the difference. The monkey mind doesn't know the difference. It doesn't differentiate between, again, a polar bear attack or an argument with somebody, or an exam or an interview coming up, or any other issues in your life. It doesn't differentiate. So, oh no, polar bear attack, and it's just an interview or an exam. But it reacts with those neurochemicals, believing it's a life-threatening situation, which is why we feel anxious and scared when these things come up, okay? So, but that can only happen if your mind is in the past, in memories, thinking negatively, or in the future, in imagination, thinking negatively, okay? So if you're spending most of your time in the past and the future, where is it that you hardly ever visit, maybe never visit? Now, the present moment. Now, most people believe that they live in the present moment. Your body is physically here in the present moment, but start paying attention to how often is your mind actually here in the present moment. Now, if you're thinking, oh, I'm always in the present moment, then you're not, because if you're thinking you're not in the present moment, you've gone to past or future. Now, I'm going to try a little experiment here. Now, this is much easier when I'm actually in front of somebody working with them, but this is on video and I've no idea who you are or where you are when you're watching this, so it's a bit of a risk, but let's give it a go. I want you to just try now, wherever you are, don't be doing anything else apart from looking at this, and look straight into my eyes and start to become aware of your body. Now, don't think about it. I don't want you to think. I don't want you to use your mind. I just want you to see whether you can become aware, and I want you to start with your feet or your legs and see whether you can notice, whether you can feel your feet, whether you can feel your legs. Again, not thinking about them with your mind, not having an opinion, not judging them, just becoming aware, and see whether you can notice any kind of sensation of aliveness. So it might be a bit like a tingling, might feel a bit like pins and needles. Now, you might notice it in your hands, in your arms. If you're busy thinking about it, if you're busy questioning yourself, if you're judging me, judging yourself, then you won't be feeling anything because you're stuck in your mind in the past or the future. But if you are actually following these instructions and just staring at me without having an opinion about me, without judging yourself, and just starting to feel, then you might notice this sense of aliveness that I'm talking about. Now, if you don't notice it straight away, that's fine. You can come back, practice it again. But if you can start to notice this somewhere in your body, some sense of aliveness, some tingling, or maybe you're noticing a warmth or something like that, I want you to pay attention that every second that you're aware of this, notice that your compulsive thinking mind that's normally there all the time, where is it now? It's not there, is it? That's because you're in the present moment and you're not thinking. There is just present moment awareness. Now, if this isn't making any sense to you at this moment, that's fine. You will need to practice. You can do this because every human can do this, but you're just not practiced. And this is the whole thing about what we call the monkey mind, is that I didn't make up the term monkey mind. Somebody called the Buddha did, that you might have heard about 2,500 years ago. He described the human mind as like being filled with drunken monkeys, swinging from branch to branch, screeching and panicking and shouting, with fear being an especially loud monkey, pointing out all the things that could go wrong and all the things that you could worry about. Okay. So, and that's what he called the untrained human mind. Now, what we're doing through this process is going to begin to train the mind so that it goes where you want it. So when I say, where is your mind? You need to start practicing and bringing it back to the moment. And we do that by coming back to your senses, which is the sense of smell, touch, taste, what you can feel, what you can hear. So in this moment, you can feel the weight of your body, for example, sitting on a chair. You can hear something, you can see something. Just pay attention to that. Be aware of that without judging it. Or you can become aware of your breath. Your breath coming in, your breath leaving your body, not judging it, not thinking about it, not having an opinion about it, just experiencing that. All of those things bring you back to the moment, the present moment. And when you learn to start living more in the moment, being mindful is another way of talking about it, then you're not spending your time in the past and the future. You're not going to be triggering those stress responses, which means that you're going to either stop filling up your stress bucket, or we're at least going to turn the taps off a lot and put a lot less in. Okay? So you might need to watch this one a few times. You might need to practice this a few times, okay, in order to start really understanding this and start benefiting from it, okay? But that's the end of part 3. And then I'm going to see you in part 4, okay?